Advanced techniques enabled her to pin down the original source of the materials. She's helped by the fact that most of the cloth is wool.
There are a number of different diagnostic features of animal fibers that can be used to identify the animal from which it came, namely the diameter of the fiber, the shape of it in cross-section, the type of scale, the shape of the scale, and how it's arranged on the shaft of the fiber, and also the level of waviness or kinkiness to the fiber.
Under the powerful gaze of a scanning electron microscope, the shape and structure of each fiber becomes crystal clear. From this detailed picture, Irene can go on to identify the species of sheep that a fiber has come from. Analyzing her results, Irene soon realized that the wool of the mummy's clothes came from a sheep that could not have been found in China at that time.
Culturally, China was not involved with wool production or use until considerably later. The wools that were used by the mummies in the Tarim Basin, some of them were related to sheep and therefore of people that had a common ancestor, at least to ones that were used in Europe. So it's almost certainly coming in from the West.
If these were the mummies of visitors from the West, it was vitally important to know just when they had arrived. Could they really be as old as they seemed? In the laboratory, radiocarbon dating techniques were able to provide the answer. These people died about 4,000 years ago, almost 2,000 years before the Emperor Xin opened up the Silk Road. The presence of the mummies meant that there had been Western visitors in this remote part of China many centuries before we thought, proving that it wasn't only trade goods that had made the journey across Asia. And clearly the Silk Road traders were not breaking new ground, but following in the footsteps of their much earlier ancestors. The work at Petra and Angkor Wat showed how far-reaching and diverse the effects of trade can be. Now historians are accepting that very similar influences must have been stimulating cultures across Asia at least 4,000 years ago and possibly earlier. So the great civilizations of Asia had not grown up in isolation. The threads of trade had joined them from earliest times. Suddenly we're looking at an exchange of ideas, knowledge, and culture that we never suspected. East and West may well have more of a common history than either have imagined.
At first, they appear to be mere blocks of stone. Then faces emerge. And suddenly, there are dozens, hundreds, smiling inwardly, timeless, at peace. Who was this man? God? King? Buddha? His secret, and those who built this place, had lain hidden in the Cambodian jungle for 4 centuries. This mystery in stone exists in a place called Angkor, the great temple city of an empire long forgotten. That city still survives, embracing the people who live here today. In the last millennium, the fertile lands between India and China were fought over for centuries by rival kingdoms. in what are now called Vietnam, Laos, Thailand and Cambodia. But in the year 802 AD, a new king ascended to the throne in Cambodia, establishing a dynasty that would last more than 600 years. His people were called the Khmer, as Cambodians still call themselves today. Angkor would become a city of more than 1 million people, larger than any European city at that time, the largest religious site in the world. And its great temples would be among the most exquisite achievements of religious art by any civilization. For the Khmer people believed that they were building, quite literally, heaven on earth. The Khmers already worshipped the great Hindu gods of India. But by the 9th century, the Khmer kings decided to make themselves gods as well, gods on earth. And so each king built himself a temple that would be an earthly gateway to heaven. The finest of these is Angkor Wat. Built in the 12th century, Angkor is actually a map in stone of the mythological Hindu cosmos. The 5 towers are Mount Meru, dwelling place of the gods. Surrounding the towers are corridors running a half mile around, the wall of rock at the end of the earth. And finally, a great moat that represents the ocean at the edge of the universe. Unlike almost any other temple in the Khmer kingdom, Angkor Wat faces the setting sun in the west, indicating that the king meant this to be his final resting place. The stories of the Hindu book of myths, the Ramayana, are laced with tales of daily life from past ages. People still respond to these stories as if they happened just the other day. Full of folk wisdom and earthy humor, the Ramayana stories link these people to their rich past, preserving it for their generation and the ones to come. At Angkor, these same Hindu myths were carved on the corridor walls. Epic battles between gods and creation stories, like the churning of the Milky Sea, in which demons and gods joined forces to create the elixir of immortality. They are attended by hundreds of delicately carved apsaras, seductive nymphs who inhabit the heavens. Apsaras grace nearly every corridor and doorway on each level of Angkor Wat, in homage to their enduring art of courtly dance. These court dances dramatize many stories, like that of Sita, the beautiful wife of Rama, and their adventures in and beyond the royal court, always with good triumphant over the evil demons and other dark forces. The court of King Suryavarman, Angkor Wat's builder, was grand indeed. Processions were common. He even had a platform built at the east gate so that he could mount directly onto his elephant, no staircase needed. Looking out at the commanding views from the central tower, nearly 20 stories high, Suryavarman must have felt his kingdom was invincible. But only 25 years after his death, the city was sacked. In a surprise attack,